I was sprinting down the corridor of the 42 NT floor offices in the glass tower of Alder and Finch Investments, heart hammering in my chest like a tribal drum. My tailored blazer flapped behind me, and my stilettos clicked on the polished marble floor in a frantic two-step rhythm, half tango, half emergency evacuation. I'd left my desk to grab a final printout of the Lusitania Fund performance report, only to realize 5 minutes before the board meeting that I'd never actually printed it. The elevators were already closed, the security guard had given me a pitying look, and in my haste I'd almost smashed face first into the director of operations as I barreled past. "Please, God, let the conference room door be open," I gasped, fingertips grazing the silver handle. I pushed as hard as my shoulder would allow, and the door swung inward with a low groan. The large oval table was half-circled by the stern faces of Alder and Finch's upper echelon. Helen Matthews, CEO in waiting, Eric Navarre, head of risk, Gabriela Ortiz, the sharply dressed CFO, and several others whose names I'd drilled so many times they'd become like numbers on a spreadsheet. At the head of the table, under the muted glow of recessed lighting, sat Gregory Alder himself, founder, chairman, the man who ran this firm with ice in one hand and velvet in the other. I bowed my head in apology. "I'm so sorry I'm late." The print server locked up. Before I could finish, Gabriela's sharp tone cut through the tension. "Miss Phillips," she said, her voice as cold and precise as one of her Excel macros. "You realize we began 5 minutes ago." "Only just," I managed, lowering my voice as I slid into the seat beside my boss, Thomas Reed, whispering, "Printer jam." "Sorry." His eyes flickered with concern. He'd staked his reputation on this fund, and I was his project manager. He gave me a single nod, code for stay calm, fix it. Then he turned to Gregory Alder. "Your report, Grace?" Alder asked, voice soft but carrying a command that rippled through the wood-paneled walls. I swallowed, hands clammy. I retrieved the sheaf of glossy pages from my leather portfolio and began distributing them with a wobbly breath. But just as I handed the first copy to Helen, the door behind me banged open and a hush fell over the room. I hadn't heard anyone approach. A tall figure stood in the doorway, a woman in a charcoal pantsuit, hair swept into a sleek bun, hazel eyes burning like embers. My pulse skipped. It was Vanessa Yates, head of compliance, notorious for sniffing out improprieties and shredding reputations with equal fervor. Her presence here was unexpected. Compliance guys rarely attended board meetings, unless there was bad news. I swallowed again. "Miss Yates," I hissed to Thomas beside me. "What?" But Thomas was already on his feet, chair scraping. "Vanessa," he said quietly, tone respectful. "What are you doing here?" She fixed her gaze on me, then on the board members, her posture rigid. "I'm sorry to interrupt, Gregory, but there's an urgent matter that you all need to know before we proceed." Her voice was steady, but her eyes flicked to mine, as if I were both the messenger and the message. Gregory Alder leaned back in his leather chair, arching a single eyebrow. "Go on." Vanessa closed the door behind her. The final clang sounded like a guillotine drop. She advanced to the head of the table and laid a manila folder in front of Alder. "During my routine audit this morning," she began, "I stumbled upon discrepancies in the Lusitania Fund's transaction ledger, massive ones." A tremor ran through the room. Helen's delicate jaw clenched. Gabriela stared at her steno pad, pen poised. I gripped the edge of the table so tightly my knuckles blanched. Thomas's voice was a whisper. "Grace," I felt like air had been sucked out of the chamber. The papers I'd just distributed, 18 pages of carefully curated performance figures, suddenly felt like confetti tossed before a firing squad. Vanessa spoke again. "Preliminary numbers suggest unauthorized trades, totaling nearly $20 million. Trades that originated from a terminal logged to Miss Phillips's credentials." She glared at me, every syllable a blow. I flagged the time-stamped orders, 9:47 a.m. to 10:03 a.m., right when most of you were in this very room. "Miss Phillips, can you explain?" My mind split into shards. 9:47 a.m. to 10:03 a.m. was precisely when I'd been stuck at the printer. That moment I cursed the network admin and swore I'd bring donuts next time. I'd been at the printer, but someone else could have logged in as me anywhere. I glanced at Thomas. He looked as stunned as I felt, mouth going dry. "I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered, voice cracking. "I was at the printer. I can show you the server logs. I never Vanessa's lips curved downward. "I've already checked. The only IP address is yours. The timestamps match." A clap of thunder from the glass windows made everyone jump. Outside, rain pelted against the skyscraper, a torrent ready to cleanse the city of its sins. Gabriella shoved her chair back. This is preposterous. Grace has overseen every Lusitania transaction. She'd have no motive. Helen cut her off. That's not the point. The numbers are there. She glared at me, sympathy drowned in the flicker of disappointment. Explain it. All eyes turned to me, my throat closed, my ears rang. Emily Chung, head of HR, whispered from the corner. Maybe she mistyped her credentials? It sounded hopeful but empty. I swallowed a lungful of air. I was printing the summary at exactly that time. I didn't initiate any trades. Someone must have used my profile. Please, let me access the logs with IT. I can prove I was never on the trading terminal. Vanessa shook her head. I already confirmed your badge was used to log into the trading floor mainframe at 2 different terminals. She paused, letting her words hang like daggers. And the security cameras place you at the second terminal. Terminal 4, at 9:55 a.m. A cold sweat slicked my spine. Security cameras, the trading floor was restricted. Only authorized traders had access. I was in marketing. I didn't even know the access code. Thomas jumped in, voice taut. This has to be a mistake. Grace's access card wouldn't grant her entry. He shot a look at the HR head. Emily, is that right? Emily peered over rimless glasses. Her card is coded for the main office areas, not for the trading floor, unless the access protocols were tampered with. Her voice trailed off. She knew as well as I did that made it worse. Tampering implied an inside job. Gregory Alder rose, folding his arms. I don't like witch hunts, he said slowly, scanning the faces around the table. But we also can't ignore $20 million in phantom trades. Thomas, can you and Miss Phillips step into my office? Now my heart felt hollow, like the floor had slipped from beneath me. The board members sat back, murmuring among themselves. Vanessa collected her folder with a satisfied nod. Thomas reached across and picked up my trembling hand. His eyes burned with something pity, rage, fear, I couldn't tell. Grace, he said softly, just stay calm. I managed a weak nod. We left the room, the door swinging shut with a finality that echoed down the hall. Outside, the rain was relentless, drumming against the windows like a warning. Thomas guided me into Alder's office, a larger, more ornate version of the conference room. Dark wood shelves lined with leather-bound editions and awards. Alder sat behind his desk, elbows planted on lacquered wood. The city skyline stretched behind him, towers glowing like distant beacons. Have a seat, he said, gesturing to the leather chair in front of him. I sat, knees knocking. He steepled his fingers. Grace, I've known you 3 years. You built your reputation here. I've watched you rise from analyst to project manager in record time. He sighed. I want to believe you. I closed my eyes, swallowed. I would never risk everything I've worked for. I don't know how my credentials ended up on that terminal. Thomas cleared his throat. We need a timeline. Where exactly were you between 9:45 and 10:05 today? I blinked, already dialing through the morning. I was at the copy room on 41, printing the fund summary. I had to fix a paper jam, so I might have been by the printer the whole time. Then I walked here through the hallway, past it. Alder nodded slowly. Verifiable, yes. I kept my voice steady, determined. The building's card reader logs when you enter the copy room, and I swiped in at 9:43 a.m. Then I went through the security turnstile to the 42nd floor at 10:04 a.m., which is recorded in the elevator logs. He looked to Thomas. Can we pull those logs? Thomas nodded. Already requested. They should be up in minutes. Alder's eyes narrowed. What about CCTV? We have cameras in the corridors, don't we? Yes, I swallowed. And the entry to the trading floor. I've never seen that footage, but you do have cameras. Alder pursed his lips. We will review it all. If you're telling the truth, we'll find it. He stabbed a finger at the folder Vanessa left. We need you here in my office until this is resolved. No going back to your desk. My shoulders slumped. Understood. He leaned back. Thomas will escort you to your desk to gather things you might need. Files, personal items. But after that, I'm afraid we'll have to suspend you pending investigation. The words hit me like a freight train. Head suspend. Investigation. My pulse rattled my ribs. Suspend me? You mean unpaid? He held up a hand. We'll decide compensation later. For now, we can't trust your credentials on our network. I'm sorry, Grace. Thomas rose. Come on, he said, voice gentle. Let's get your things. I stood numbly, collected my bag from beneath the desk, and followed him out. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. As we passed the boardroom, I glimpsed the faces inside. Helen's eyes widened. Gabriella's lips pressed tight. Vanessa's eyes glinting triumphantly. Each glance was a verdict without trial. At my desk, I moved through motions, logging off my computer, packing away family photos, my favorite mug, the stack of congratulatory notes from the fund's early successes. I paused at the photo of my mother and me at graduation, beaming in caps and gowns. My hands shook as I slipped it into my briefcase. Thomas placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm so sorry, he whispered. We'll get to the bottom of this. I nodded, voice a whisper. Thank you. He led me back to Alder's office. The door closed behind us with a thud. I sank into the leather chair, the folder of accused trades pressing heavily on my lap. Alder folded his hands. The logs and CCTV will speak soon. Until then, I hope you'll cooperate. I closed my eyes, fighting the wave of panic. I will. The city lights twinkled through the window. Indifferent, distant. I sat in silence as Alder's office hum turned low, and I realized that my career, reputation, and livelihood hung by a thread woven by someone else's fingers. I'd come rushing into that meeting, ready to confirm triumph, only to find myself under suspicion of corporate sabotage. And in the hush after the storm, I waited for the rain of evidence to reveal the truth, one frame at a time. I sat in Gregory Alder's office, long after Thomas Reed slipped out, leaving the door ajar like a trapdoor opening into a darker corridor. The veneer of Alder and Finch's polished success had cracked, and I was left balancing on the edge of a scandal that could swallow me whole. 1. The evidence arrives 2 hours later. Alder reappeared with a USB drive and a sheaf of printouts. The elevator logs showed definitively that my security badge never activated the trading floor turnstiles between 9:47 and 10:03 a.m. And the CCTV footage, grainy but telling, revealed someone wearing my office blazer and scarf swiping through the turnstiles at 9:55 a.m., heading to Terminal 4. Gregory Alder pressed the printout into my hand. This is your alibi, he said. Someone set you up. We'll get to the bottom of it. Vanessa Yates is unfortunately out fuming in legal. We'll need her to authenticate these logs. I stared at the image, a figure that could have been me. Height, build, even hairstyle matched, yet the face was obscured by a surgical mask. My throat tightened. Who would use my clothes and my badge? I whispered. He sighed. Someone with access to your wardrobe and your security information. He glanced at his watch. I'm reconvening the board at 6 p.m. to clear your name. In the meantime, you're suspended from trading duties, but we'll reinstate you immediately after the meeting. I nodded numbly. Thank you. As I left his office, the hallway lights seemed dimmer, the echoes of my heels unfamiliar. Thomas hovered by the glass, walled HR office. His relief was palpable. Grace, I'm so sorry. I'll cover for you until this blows over. As I left his office, the hallway lights seemed dimmer, the echoes of my heels unfamiliar. Thomas hovered by the glass, walled HR office. His relief was palpable. Grace, I'm so sorry. I'll cover for you until this blows over. I managed a weak smile. Thank you. I need to find out who did this. If Vanessa locks down your staff list, maybe we can cross-reference who has access to my blazer. He pressed his forearm into his jacket. I'll get security on it. 2. A note in the mailroom. Before I could speak, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your mailbox on P6. My pulse leapt. Parking level P6, beneath the trading floors where I never went. My blazer hung in my closet at home. Nobody else should have it. I slipped down the stairs 2 flights, snagged an elevator to P6, and found the dim corridor outside the mailroom. I stepped inside. Rows of pigeonholes filled one wall, each labeled with employee names. My nameplate lay face down on the floor, paper clips scattered like confetti. I knelt and flipped it over. Behind it was slipped a folded note. You're playing a dangerous game. Back off for your own good, or we'll make sure next time the board fires you for good. A friend? A friend? The threat was unmistakable. My hands trembled as I stuffed the note into my coat. I snapped a couple of pictures with my phone for the record, then hurried back up to 42. At 3. The confrontation in the corridor. Vanessa Yates waited outside Alder's office. Her arms were crossed, lips a thin line. She glanced at me, eyes cold. I heard you got the logs, she said. Let's see them. I held up the printouts. Here. The badge logs and CCTV. I wasn't on the trading floor. This look-alike was. She scanned them and closed her eyes. I'm sorry, Laura. She broke off and looked away. I wanted to believe you were guilty. It would have wrapped up our audit cleanly. But the evidence is clear. I exhaled. Thank you. She shook her head. I'll help you. I know who else has access to your clothes. Your department assistant, Caitlin Sykes. She used to borrow your blazer during cold mornings at the printers. A bolt of anger shot through me. Caitlin, the unassuming assistant who quietly kept the department humming. She had my blazer. She had my badge code on her desk. And she may have been the imposter. 4. A late-night stakeout. We arranged to meet in the parking garage at midnight. I pulled on a plain navy coat and met Vanessa by the stairwell. The lights buzzed overhead. Caitlin's car, a red hatchback, sat in spot P6, engine still warm. Vanessa slipped beside me, voice low. She's working late on the quarterly memo. She'll come through this garage. I nodded, adrenaline crackling. This felt like a spy movie. After 20 minutes, the garage quiet lulled me into doubt. Then headlights cut through the darkness. Caitlin emerged, toting a stack of papers and a latte. She spotted me and froze. Laura? What are you? I stepped forward. Caitlin, we need to talk. Vanessa emerged from the shadows. We know you used Grace's blazer and badge. Caitlin's eyes darted between us. I borrowed her coat this morning. It was freezing. I didn't think. You used her blazer to mask your identity while placing $20 million in unauthorized trades. Vanessa said, voice steady. Why? Caitlin's shoulders sagged. I didn't know how else to do it. I'm in debt, medical bills for my brother. I thought I could cover it by short-selling a small slice of the fund. I was going to return it. I swear. My head spun. You risked our entire firm for your brother's hospital bill. Tears leaked from her eyes. Yes. I panicked. I didn't know where else to turn. I looked at Vanessa. She's telling the truth? Vanessa nodded. All the transactions wind up in an offshore account Caitlin controls. She stepped aside and made a call. Minutes later, security swarmed the garage and took Caitlin into custody. 5. Clearing my name, and the aftermath. The next morning's board meeting was tense but decisive. Helen Matthews opened by acknowledging the log and CCTV evidence, then detailed security's findings. Gabriela Ortiz, the CFO, apologized for her earlier skepticism. Gregory Alder addressed the room. We regret the significant breach of trust perpetrated by one of our own. Ms. Phillips's credentials were misused to facilitate unauthorized trading. But thanks to swift investigation, we've identified the culprit and secured our assets. He turned to me, voice warm. Grace, on behalf of Alder and Finch, I apologize for the ordeal you've endured. Your name is cleared, and we deeply value your integrity and contributions. I nodded, relief washing over me as the room erupted into polite applause. Back in my office, Thomas handed me a cup of coffee. Welcome back. I gave him a tired smile. Thank you. I sank into my chair, looking out over the city, rivers of dawn light threading between towers. The nightmare had ended, but the memory lingered like a phantom. 6. A final warning and a choice that afternoon. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen, an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, well done. I opened it. Inside a single line. You've passed the test, but this is only the beginning. My blood ran cold. Only the beginning? I muttered. I leaned back in my chair, mind racing. Someone, not Caitlin, had orchestrated a test of my resilience, setting me up to fail. The stranger who grabbed my arm in the hallway was right. I wasn't ready. The email contained an attachment, a classified board directive, Project Nemesis, detailing the firm's participation in a joint venture to fund private chemical waste treatment in third world countries. The contaminated reservoir on my hacked slide wasn't part of a merger. It was evidence of Alder and Finch's complicity in a toxic cover-up. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. The man who warned me had risked his anonymity to keep me from walking into that meeting. Not to protect me from wrongful firing, but to protect me from knowing how deeply the firm and presumably Alder and Finch's most powerful figures were involved in criminal negligence. I glanced at the locked drawer where I'd stashed the breeder documents, then at Thomas's empty office, the corridors outside trending back to business as usual. A choice opened before me: expose Project Nemesis, leak the directive, risk the firm's collapse, but purge the rot of corruption. Stay silent, accept the board's thanks, wash my hands of the scandal, and watch the firm soldier on. My phone buzzed again. A second email. Tick-tock, Laura. What will it be? I exhaled, determination settling in my chest like steel. I'd rushed to that meeting seeking triumph, and instead been handed a glimpse of the abyss. Now poised between loyalty and justice, I realized the real merger at stake wasn't between corporations, but between my conscience and my career. I stood, grabbed my blazer, still hanging untouched on the coat rack, and strode toward the elevator. Fingers hovered over the Project Nemesis file, thudding my heart like a warning drum. The doors closed behind me. I peered at the panel. 42. The number glowed. As the elevator descended, I made my decision.